Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag from the Heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine on ESPN Radio 1230. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, we're back again today at 4 o'clock on ESPN 1230 AM in Glasgow, and you can check us out online. If you go to the ESPNKY.com, you'll see like the broadcast center thing, and under there it says WCDS. There's like a little down arrow. You have to click on the down arrow if you're on your phone. And it says WCDS, and you can click there, and we're streaming there. So you can hear us wherever you're from. And I know we have some folks, I run into them from Metcalf and Monroe County and whatnot, that listen or they download the podcast whenever it comes out later on iTunes or on that ESPNKY.com. You can find it there. So I appreciate all those folks tuning in each week or, you know, listening later online. It's great. Our download numbers have been, you know, pretty good of late, which is just surprising because I just don't know why anybody – they want to hear what you have to say, John.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Sure.
They do. They want to hear what you have to say. I'm not sure, but they probably prefer when we have people on and talk to us.
Sure, it's fun.
Yep, which is one thing I'm going to bring up. We're going to try to line up soccer coaches and – maybe golf coaches and football coaches
coming up.
Yep. The dead period starts Monday, I think it is, or this Saturday, I guess technically, and goes for 2 weeks. Nobody can do anything. When we come back after that 4th of July break, it's fall ball time.
And I've got my world famous. I've come up with this truth potion too that these coaches have to take before they come on air. I don't want to hear that everybody's going 11-0 and they're working hard.
Oh well, you know you're going to hear it anyway. I'm pretty sure.
We got great kids that are working hard.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I don't know. You know, I do appreciate the coaches who, when they tell us, you know, here's what we got, here's what we need to get better at. I really like when they break it down like that for us and kind of tell us those things because that does give us some insight on what they're working on, which I kind of, you know, every season is a work in progress, you know, from the very beginning. And that being the case, I think what happens is we look at a season as it starts and we're like, these are going to be the best teams, period. You know, and teams can surprise us during the course of the season.
Either way.
You know, in our second segment, when we got a couple of segments coming up, our second segment, we're going to kind of talk about the future a little bit because I went and watched some girls basketball today, and there's a lot of change in the teams in the 4th region this coming year for girls basketball, and I think that's going to give us a chance to talk about, you know, some of the growth we're going to see. But first off, in this first segment here, we're going to talk about the NBA title and the fact that Toronto Raptors finally were able to beat the Wounded Warriors, as they were, and win Game 6. I think the final was 114-110, cementing, I guess, Kawhi Leonard as one of the best players in the league. I think people just forgot how good he was because he took a year off. But that's the way that worked out, and the bad thing is there's going to be an asterisk next to this Raptors championship because the Warriors were so banged up. But I kind of hate that because in the end, I actually thought this finals was a demonstration of two teams playing good basketball, in my opinion. But definitely offensive basketball. I thought they both played the game the right way, the way that I enjoy watching them play.
Yeah, I agree. It was fun. You know, in terms of asterisk, nobody will care 20 years from now. It just says Toronto Raptors was the 2019 champion. They forget about the runner-up quickly.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think it's accurate to say, would have Toronto won it if Kevin Durant was healthy, Klay Thompson was healthy?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fair to say. I mean, it's you take Kevin Durant off a team, and that's a tremendous loss.
Right.
And then Klay Thompson, who missed 2 games.
Yeah.
He missed the he missed 1 game, and then he got hurt in the 3rd quarter when he already had 30.
Yeah.
I mean, that's even for the depth of Golden State, that's hard to overcome.
Right.
And yeah, I do think it does show you though how good Leonard was. You know, that's his second title.
Yeah, second title championship MVP.
Different teams. That's correct. And Toronto was really, to be honest with you, an underachiever for years in the playoffs. They would play good in the regular season, and he appears to be the main difference maker. That and the 2 injuries, but you have to give Toronto credit. They earned it. They went through Philadelphia, who was good, Milwaukee was good, and then they beat Golden State, albeit a little bit on the wounded side. But Leonard was kind of the X factor, and he kind of turned obviously his play, and he's probably in basketball the most unselfish of the superstars right now. He plays both ends.
Yep.
Love watching him play because he does not. He doesn't speak hardly at all, but he doesn't complain either. In the same sense, doesn't complain. Got to give the head coach credit. It was a little controversial too because they fired last year the coach of the year, Dwayne Casey, and brought in an assistant coach, Nick Nurse, and it seemed like Nick Nurse's demeanor was also good. He was not a yeller and screamer. Tried different things. Boxing won. Whoever sees that in the playoffs. And
lots of people I heard on air, making fun of all the kind of junk defenses and different things that he was cooking up during the course of the playoffs. But I'm like, the object is to win.
Right.
Period.
And they just had a really, really. It's nice to see that you don't have to have a NBA All-Stars to win.
Yeah.
They played very well together. Several of the Toronto were undrafted guys. The guy from Wichita State,
Fred VanVleet.
Yeah, I mean, and he just seemed humble, and it was kind of refreshing to see that.
Yeah.
But Golden State, clearly, if you're a Golden State person, I know it's frustrating to. I mean, it's not just that Golden State lost 2 players, it's the severity of the injury.
Yeah, we had a torn Achilles and an ACL tear for Klay Thompson.
There's no worse injury in basketball or in any sport, for that matter, almost any sport, I guess you could say, other than a torn Achilles. That's a severe. That's a year injury, and Durant's already 30.
That's the same thing that Boogie Cousins did last year, and it took him not quite a year to get back, but
it's one of the more serious injuries.
Yeah,
that, and it's all along. I'm not a doctor, but I've seen a lot of injuries. I always question whether or not that calf injury was not related to the Achilles.
Yeah,
because everybody that. I'll just say this. I'm not going to give the guy's name, but we were playing 3-on-3 about 10 years ago, and I had a friend of mine that was playing, and I heard him yell, and I turned around, and he was laying on the floor, and he said, he asked somebody, "Why did you kick me in the calf?"
Oh, yeah.
And the guy said, "I didn't kick you in the calf. He tore his Achilles."
Yeah.
And it feels like, that several people told me, it feels like you got kicked in the calf.
Yeah.
And it's a severe injury.
I've never torn my Achilles, but likewise, I was playing in a pickup game one time where a guy did tear his Achilles, tore it completely.
Yep.
And that is a freaky injury as well.
It is.
Because you just, it's like your calf flexes and does not unflex, if anybody's ever kind of seen that. And it's
so I was always leery of when Durant was out 6 weeks with a strained calf.
Yeah, right.
Not a torn calf, a strained calf. And that just, I always had some red flags up. And I felt terrible for him. I also felt terrible for the organization because I've had girls that torn their ACL. Mm-hmm. And you no matter what you do, it's not your fault, but you still feel responsible sometimes.
Yeah.
And I know they felt even though Kevin Durant's 30 years old, he's a grown man.
Yeah.
I know there's some people that feel responsible for putting him back in action. And he looked good for 10 or 12 minutes, but he made that again. Those bad injuries are non-contact.
Yeah.
He made that one just a normal basketball move, and I knew as soon as he went down, that was an Achilles.
Well, and here's the thing about that kind of injury as well, is I was reading about this, about Achilles injuries and that kind of thing. Very often, if that thing is going to tear, it's going to tear. So he took 6 weeks off. It was not going to prevent the injury from occurring at some point in time, from what I was reading, because usually it's an indication that there's some sort of strain or something in there that is going to give way. I mean, it's going to give way at some point, no matter what you do. It's like an injury that will eventually have to be surgically repaired no matter what, even if it doesn't actually pop.
Yeah, I'm sure he would rather sign his 5-year, $200 million contract beforehand.
Yeah, probably. Although,
and that's the other thing about Thompson too. Torn ACL. Now the ACLs you can come back quicker, but both of them are in their contract years.
Yeah.
I think they're both going to get paid anyway.
Right.
But still, it's not really what you want to happen.
Yeah, you'd like to be in year one of that contract instead of year
In
5
contrast, though, what you feel bad about, and when these kids in high school get, their ACL torn their senior year or things like that, they don't have another shot at it.
Right.
And they don't have a pot of gold they're looking at either.
Right.
And, their career oftentimes is just over.
Yep, that's right. So that's kind of it on the NBA Finals. To reiterate what you said, I really like Kawhi Leonard. You could tell that he brought a certain sense of calm
Yes.
to the Raptors.
Yes.
They never were worried, no matter what the situation.
Never celebrated until it was over.
Yeah, exactly right. And so, but now we get to the what some people call the best season of the NBA, which is the off season.
It's like a male soap opera.
It really is.
Yeah.
My wife says that all the time.
It is.
Because you're watching your soaps again.
Yeah, I mean, NBA, that's more about who's going where
Yeah.
than the play anymore.
Yeah. Well, and we got our first hint right off, for Kentucky fans. I mean, Anthony Davis, the Lakers and the Pelicans have agreed to a trade. Now, I understand the trade can't be finalized till like July 31st because
6th
of
now.
Yeah.
July 6th.
July 6th. Okay, so because of how the contract situations work and the season is and, how all this stuff works, that's math beyond my reasoning. But anyway, so basically the Lakers get Anthony Davis and they give away everything else. It was Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Hart, and 3 picks, I think, going to New Orleans.
They kept a good one, though.
They did.
Kuzma is a really good player. I think he was their best player.
I do, too. I think when this trade did not happen near the trade deadline, it was because it seemed that the Pelicans demanded Kyle Kuzma be part of the trade, and the Lakers knew they weren't giving him away.
Yep.
So to me, I don't know. Free agents will sign with the Lakers; they'll fill in the gaps, that kind of stuff. I love Anthony Davis as a player. Talking about injuries, LeBron James finally had one, which probably stopped the Lakers from making the playoffs. I'd say it did.
Anthony Davis has been hurt every year.
Anthony Davis has been hurt every year. This feels like a group of players on borrowed time, minus Kyle Kuzma. I'm not sure it makes the Lakers like the best team in the West or anything like that.
They probably will be eventually because they're going to get, as long as they put shooters around them.
Yeah.
And surely to goodness they're smart enough. They didn't do it last year, but surely they can find enough shooters to go with them. With Golden State the Golden State will not be a factor next year.
Yeah, they're losing Durant more than likely.
That's correct.
Probably Thompson and some role players.
Houston's falling apart.
Yeah.
So
you can't even get their contract situation.
So the West looks like now if Leonard goes to the Clippers, that's on.
That's
for real.
Correct.
But
the Staples Centers will be a great place to be just about every night.
That's correct. I think Denver will be really good too. But but I'm just so happy that LeBron has somebody that he can play with. I mean, I'm I'm so sick of it, to be honest with you. Everywhere he goes, he has to have the best players in the world to play with, and it's just
the greatest player with it.
He doesn't seem like he plays well with the younger. I mean, he doesn't like.
He does not do what Kawhi Leonard did in Toronto.
He
does not bring a sense of stability and calm to an organization.
It is a soap opera with him. I understand he only has a couple years left, and as time's run out, he needs if he's going to get another one, he needs to get it now.
Right.
But it seems like everywhere he goes, though, it's the same old. I just get tired of the drama. I'll just be honest with you.
Yeah, I was fine with the fact that he was not in the playoffs this year. I actually think it made the playoffs better.
Yeah, he's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but it's just the coach has to suit him. Mm-hmm. He's got to have the right players with him. After a while, come on, can you just play and adapt to a coach yourself rather than getting every coach you play with fired?
Well, lots of people like to make analogies and comparisons. This comparison I'm about to make has nothing to do with how LeBron James plays the game, but it has to do with the circus that seems to be around him. And my comparison is to Wilt Chamberlain. Now, Wilt Chamberlain was always runner-up because Bill Russell and the Celtics always had the better team.
Right.
And he was always a malcontent about his circumstances, it seemed. If you go back and read the history of Wilt Chamberlain's days and his playing days and that kind of stuff, until he got to the Lakers in the early 70s and they had an established team and he fit in with them and he wasn't the number one option on offense. He was the defensive stopper. He led the league in assists, I think, one of those years. So, will that happen to LeBron James at some point as he ages? Because basically that was Wilt Chamberlain at the end of his career.
Yeah, but he's won now.
Yeah,
he's won 3 times.
I mean,
right.
Chamberlain won in '67 with the 76ers, right? But I mean, in terms of but that was it.
Yeah.
And that was because Bill Russell was hurt, I think, during that season, and so. But as you know, if you could go back in the '60s and people cared about the NBA like they do now, I imagine that would be very much the same kind of conversation.
I'd say Wilt's social media following would be amazing.
Yeah, it would be, man. People would be all over that.
Yes,
It'd be like nothing we've seen before.
I agree.
Probably.
I agree. But I'm happy for the Lakers.
Yeah.
But I'm really not, to be honest with you. But Anthony Davis is a great player.
Yeah, I love watching him too.
But I still think there's a but to it. I'm not mailing the trophy into them either.
No, I still think the player with the biggest impact, as you just pointed out,
Leonard,
is Kawhi
if he
Leonard.
stays at Toronto, I think they're the favorite. He goes to the Clippers. I think he makes them instantly a player.
Yep, I agree with you. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back to talk a little more local basketball.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, this is the last week of people being able to do things before the dead period, and one of the things they like to do these couple of weeks leading up to the dead period is play some summer basketball.
Like is a strong word.
Is it that they do?
They do.
Okay. I think here's the thing, man. I enjoy just watching people play because, and we talked about this last year, these summer games don't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. It's very generic, very vanilla, what the offenses and defenses folks are running, and as much as anything, it's probably just a matter of making sure people stay conditioned, and your younger players who did not see much varsity time last year get an opportunity to get in there and play. Sometimes, and that's probably good. I mean, when you look today, Barron was playing. That's going to be important for Barron probably this summer, as some of these younger players playing some this summer, because I mean they had 4 seniors who were integral to the success of the team. But but then you have Glasgow on the other hand. They have a bunch of the same players back. 4 starters, I think, are back for them. So that's a little bit different for them. It's, an opportunity maybe to work in some players that, aren't going to get to play probably a whole lot during the season. We'll just see. So I got to see Glasgow play Greenwood this morning. By the way, Glasgow's hosting a team camp today and tomorrow. They're done for today. I think the last game's at 5 o'clock today. But then they start back at 10 o'clock in the morning with teams playing over at Glasgow High School and Glasgow Middle School. It's a bunch of varsity and some JV games. But anyway, I got to see Glasgow and Greenwood play, and then I got to see Barron and Edmonson County play. And then Bowling Green and Monroe were playing, and I stuck around long enough to see which Bowling Green team was going to be there. And it looked like their A team, so I didn't stick around for the whole game. Me personally, I kind of just like watching basketball a lot of times too, but that's beside the point. From what I saw today, I would say 2 things. Well, already we know the 4th region girls is going to be very different next year because there were a lot of top players that graduated. And a lot of them from Barron, from Bowling Green, South Warren, but Glasgow, Allen County, but Glasgow's got probably their 2 best players back, and Barron has maybe their best player back, Elizabeth Bertram. If she might be ranked as the best player in the 4th region next year. I would say she's in the hunt for it.
Yep.
Bowling Green had some young players who were really good, and they'll all be back. They were pretty raw last year, those younger ones, but they were scary. So it's kind of an opportunity to see some of the teams that are expected to be the best teams in the 4th region next year.
Yeah, I don't have to go watch a game, and I can tell you.
As long as certain people aren't injured, right?
As long as certain people don't get hurt next year. And the transfer deal, which is bigger in boys than girls.
Yeah, it is.
Barron and Bowling Green will be the top 2 teams.
Barron and Bowling Green?
Barron and Bowling Green.
You think Bertram's going to be that important that she's going to carry them?
Basketball's about high school basketball generally comes down to, do you have good guards?
Yeah.
And Barron will have 2 really good guards.
They'll have Bertram. Who's the other one you got? Well,
Coach Murphy's daughter.
Yeah.
Yes, who played a lot as a 7th
Katie
grader,
Murphy.
and she'll be an 8th grader, and she got valuable minutes last year. If you can handle the ball, you got a really good chance. She will handle the ball well.
Yep.
And they have Carly Delk, who's I think a really good player. And you got some other ones that are back that played a lot last year. Barron will be a top, for sure, 3.
Yeah.
Bowling Green's going to be the favorite.
Yeah.
They were so young and plus so athletic. They're going to give teams fits. Logan has 2 good guards.
Yep.
Back, and they'll be in the top 5. And then I think you'll probably want to throw Metcalf and Glasgow.
Yeah.
And outside of that, maybe South Warren.
Yeah, because
South Warren was long.
They had a good
That's
sophomore,
right. That's
but
correct.
Natalie Pierce will be gone, and she was a big part of what they did.
But if you don't have a guard, or a couple of guards, you have no shot at even being good.
Yeah,
and that's kind of outside of people getting a major injury, especially to a guard or somebody that I don't know of right now who's moved in.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised to see Barron and Bowling Green back in the finals.
Now, I would say that I would probably put Glasgow ahead because I would say they have guaranteed inside scoring, but they do have to find a guard who can and will shoot, I think, in order to really take some of the pressure off that inside game. I mean, because Glasgow's defense was really good last year. It was hard to score on them.
Yep.
But they also had a hard time scoring, which is the thing that they've got to figure out
and
how to fix.
They had a hard time with turnovers against good teams.
They did indeed. I think they should be better at that this year.
You generally do.
Yeah.
I mean,
because they'll have 3 guards back who really played.
Experience helps, and returning most of your players, you'll be better. Mm-hmm. And Justin does a really, really good job, and that's why I've got him in my top 5.
Yeah. Now, I'm with you though. I think anybody who looks up and says that because Ragland and Brown graduated at Bowling Green, they should be down, probably did not watch them in the regional tournament because they had, I think it was 3 sophomores.
Had an 8th grader that's really good.
An 8th grader. They all played, and a couple of them, man, if they figure it out between now and next year, they're going to be really, really hard to beat.
Well, and they were in a tough spot last year. They were very young and inexperienced in the finals of the region against Barron, and even though it was played in Diddle on a neutral floor, it's like a road game. It looked like a college road game.
Yeah.
Barron probably had 95% of the people at Diddle Arena against them, and against a real young team. I think they got rattled there, especially in the second half.
Yeah, and I tell you one thing I did watch today. You mentioned the players. You mentioned Bertram and Murphy. Another player that Barron has that I thought looked pretty good at the close of the season was Raven Ennis. Mm-hmm. I think she's a pretty sharp player. And here's the other thing about Barron: Murphy and Bertram aren't real big, but they do still have some pretty long players left. It's just that they were young and didn't see a lot of time on the court.
Yeah, they'll be big enough.
Yeah, they'll be bigger than people probably expect.
They'll be big enough. They will be a tough out.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of when you win the region the next year. I don't care how many you graduate, you will be better than a lot of people think. There's just there's a confidence that comes with that, and somebody will have to beat them.
Yeah. Meanwhile, so the 15th district will take outside of. You're going to have Glasgow back. Barron will be good as long as Bertram's still playing there and some of the other players, but especially Bertram. But Allen County will probably drop way off.
Yes.
They lost Sutton and Towery, those two were about all of their offense.
About 90%.
Yeah, and then
I think now there was a couple other ones. I think they will be freed up for some of the other ones. The Cook girl, I think.
Yeah.
I think they'll be better than people think.
Yeah,
but they're not going to be a regional contender.
Right. And then Monroe is, I would say, still in a rebuilding state at this point in time.
Yes, massive rebuilding.
And I think that from what I've seen, they have some pretty decent younger players, but I mean they're kind of behind because of what you've just mentioned about Barron getting to state and those players, their younger players getting that experience and that kind of stuff, and Monroe trying to regain their confidence. I would say as a top program in the region. So anyway, it's kind of good if you want to get over there tomorrow. If you're a fan of watching kids play basketball, I'd say go over there tomorrow. They got a whole slate.
10 o'clock in the morning, all the way to 6.
Yep.
Both gyms.
Yep. So you'll see a lot of teams. There's some teams from outside the area. I think Walton Verona is there today and maybe back tomorrow. Southwestern from Pulaski County. So you can also see some other teams. And Southwestern was in the state tournament. And Walton Verona is usually pretty good at girls basketball.
Southwestern got beat in the finals.
Yep. So, I mean, you're talking about two teams. They have some good teams at this tournament, good players at this team camp, as they call it. Meanwhile, in college basketball, Zion Harmon announced that he has received an offer from Western Kentucky University. He's classified as a 2021 graduate. But he probably will be one of those kids that does that, reclassification to move back a year. I wouldn't be surprised if he does.
Nothing that they've done has been exactly by the book, right?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, look, he took a year off from high school basketball for all intents and purposes.
As far as I know, he's eligible as a junior at Marshall County right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I've not seen anything that he's going to. It still says Marshall County.
Okay. All right.
On his it says hometown Benton, Kentucky.
Okay. Well, they'll be tough to beat because he's a heck of a player.
Yes. And that also kind of falls into, we were talking about this with Kawhi Leonard basically being gone for a year, and you forget how good somebody is. Zion Harmon is one of those players. We've not seen him playing high school basketball. Now, if you follow the AAU circuit and all that stuff, you've seen him.
Yeah, he hadn't been hurt either.
No, he hadn't been hurt. He's been playing, but we haven't seen him in high school basketball. So he is a special player, although I think he's still not 6 feet tall from what I saw. But yeah, he's still an impressive basketball player as he was as an 8th grader and a freshman, and that'll be something to see. But I was fascinated by the fact that, he proudly displayed WKU as one of his universities that's offered him a scholarship.
I would offer him right now too if I was Western.
Yeah,
so I think that's smart.
Yeah. Now, we'll see. Who has to get a job.
Western has desperately needed a point guard the last couple of years.
Absolutely. They certainly have. I mean, that's been their Achilles. I mean, they have not had a good point guard.
Their point guard play last year was a key reason why they struggled.
Oh, yeah.
The instability there, turned the ball over too many times.
Yeah, inconsistent.
And they desperately, it's still a ways off. Maybe, if they get the guy from Lipscomb, if he becomes eligible.
Kenny Cooper.
That will be as big of a reason for their success as the big kid coming back.
Yeah, Bassey.
That's correct.
Dropping out of the NBA draft.
Yep.
Which that NBA draft is Thursday night, and I think life will be interesting on that night as well if people are into that. But yeah, so they've had Western's had some top players that have committed to them. If anybody's watched any of the Kentucky-Indiana All-Star games, I think they saw a couple of, one, Isaiah Cotesart, he played in that. He's coming to Western in the fall.
Kentucky boys got hammered.
Yeah, night two, boy. Yeah, they got beat by 40, I think, in the second game.
Yeah, the girls split.
Yep.
In the second game, they lost in overtime. They played well.
Yeah.
But the boys just got annihilated.
I would think at this point in time, Kentucky boys basketball might be catching up to Indiana, but does not seem to be the case.
Well, it's just that game has lost its luster so much.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a big, big deal for years. And now they only get together for about a week, and they play back-to-back nights. And it's just has totally lost its luster because a lot of kids don't even play in it.
Yeah, I think last year most of the top players in Kentucky did not go to the game.
Yep.
So it's I don't know. Is that a thing of a bygone era, you think?
I believe it is.
Yeah, maybe they should move on to something
Well, a lot
else.
of colleges want them on campus and practicing with them in June and July.
Right. Get in early.
Enroll, and they don't want the risk of the injury and things like that. So that's also been a factor.
Well,
it used to be played at Freedom Hall.
Right.
And now it's at Bellarmine College, and it's been at Kentucky Wesleyan, and it used to draw 12,000, and now it's they have a hard time getting 1,000.
Yeah. Speaking of Bellarmine, they announced today that they're moving to Division I, and I think they'll be a part of the Atlantic Sun.
I did not really. I've got a family friend that's will be a senior for them.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
They open up next year with Notre Dame in Louisville.
Yeah. Now I guess that'll be in 2020 when they will move up. I didn't see if it was going to be. It won't be this fall.
Never. No.
It'd be 2020 or 2021.
I'd say 2021. It's never that quick.
Well, I think maybe they're going to do like the Western thing where they do 1 year where it's technically not a conference schedule before they go into Atlantic Sun. So maybe in the Atlantic Sun in 2021, but they may do an actual D1 schedule in 2020.
Okay, well, that's big. That's big news.
Yeah, I was shocked that it was Bellarmine, but that was. I think they had the press conference like at noon or 11 today, something like that.
Okay.
Talking about it.
All right, that's great.
Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, the Warren East Lady Raiders were state runners-up for the second consecutive year. There was a point in that game, they lost to Male, which was undefeated, went 39-0.
Yep.
There was a point, I think it was in the 6th inning, Warren East was down 3-1. They had the bases loaded and
No
one
outs.
out.
Was it one out?
Yeah, there was one out. And Katie Gardner was the third batter coming up, and they could not get the runs. I felt like if Katie Gardner, who was Miss Softball this year, she hit a ball that was a pop-up to left field, I think it was. But if she could have gotten anything, I think Warren East could have won that game. It felt like they were at that moment. But Male, there was a reason they were undefeated. And their pitcher was outstanding.
Yes, and back.
But, so that was, but it was better than last year's final when they lost 10-0 to Scott County.
That's true. Better. The format was going to make it a better deal too. I think last year when they played Scott County, Warren East had already played like 4 games in a row in the heat of the day too.
Yeah,
they just kind of ran out of gas. But it's obviously something to be very proud of, to be back-to-back state runner-up.
Yeah.
In a sport that's probably the most popular sport for girls in the state. Girls softball is extremely competitive and is played year-round, from summer ball and so forth. So that's a heck of an accomplishment. To lose to an undefeated male team, and the male girls were rated 3rd in the country.
Yeah.
The bad news for the state is they return almost every one of their players.
Right.
I think Male loses maybe 1, maybe 2. So they will be the heavy favorite next year. But East had their chance. Their best win was their semifinals. They beat Central Hardin.
Yeah.
They one of East's 3 losses this year. One was to Central Hardin, so they redeemed themselves and got a really good win in the semifinals and had a chance to beat I guess you could say a great male team.
Yeah.
And just came up short. But they've got East has kind of taken over the Greenwood powerhouse of the region, and Greenwood was a state power for probably 7-8 years under Penny.
Right.
Allen County was a statewide power under Rick Roberts for a long period of time, and now looks like Warren East has taken on that mantle themselves.
Yeah. It is impressive. You look back over the last, 20 years of fast pitch softball in South Central Kentucky.
3 dynasties now.
Yeah, and it's amazing that some of the best programs over those 20 years have come out of this area.
Yeah, Allen, Greenwood, and now East.
Yeah.
And East is set for a while because he coaches something that I was never really interested in doing, to be honest with you. He coaches year-round. Mm-hmm. Summer ball, he's got a 2nd grade team, 3rd grade team, 4th grade team, and oftentimes these kids stay with him from the time they're 6 to their senior year.
Yeah.
And he has a system in place that almost like a factory, and I was never really enthralled with doing that. Perfectly honest with you, but he really has a system down, and they're going to be. They lose Katie Gardner, they lose 3 other seniors, but they will again be the favorite next year. They've got a freshman pitcher that pitched a lot this year that's really good.
Yeah,
and you have to thank them. South Warren will be 2 of the top teams. Barron returns a lot of good players too.
Yep. This kind of goes back to what you mentioned about Barron in basketball for Warren East in softball. When you're that good, your younger players get a lot of live action because you're dominating teams. You're talking about the freshman pitcher. Katie Gardner might not finish some games. They'd get up.
Oh, they kind of split it up a lot this year. He let the freshman pitcher pitch a lot this year.
Yeah, including in the district final, which didn't go well, but I guess she learned.
Yeah. She pitched in the state tournament too.
Yeah. So like you said, he's kind of got a factory approach to this, and it's working out real well for him. Did you like the new softball format?
I do. I think they could. They're probably not, as long as baseball only goes 8 to the state tournament. They could easily in softball do 16.
Yeah.
You could actually do a 16-team state softball, because the game goes so much quicker. They're done in 2 hours, hour and 45 minutes, and you could do the semifinals and finals on the same day. And if they wanted to bring them all up there, they could play it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and get it over with. It's a lot harder to do in baseball. The games just go on and on and on. They won't, because of the guys. They're not going to have one team have a top, a Sweet 16, and the other one have an 8 team. They won't do it that way. But I do like the format. I did not like postponing it for a week. I thought that was ridiculous. But overall, I think single elimination is probably the better way to go in high school. You need to kind of get the tournament over with. People are graduating; they're moving on.
Right.
And double elimination is with 16 teams is too much.
Yeah.
Maybe double elimination with 8 is possible. You could do that in softball. You can't do it in really baseball, I don't think, because of the arm factor. But you probably could in softball. But I think all in all, it was a better format.
I get that not every sport is the same, but the seasons sometimes are the same. So back to your point about when school ends, people, Barron County graduated on May 20th.
Right.
I mean, they would have been basically,
out a month.
they'd have been out a month if they were in the state tournament. That's a long time to ask seniors to stick around. I mean, I don't care how much they love it, but I mean, when you graduate high school, you're ready to move on to your next phase of life a lot of times.
That's right.
So, I mean, and that's got to, I would imagine that would also impact the performance of some teams, because when you're in school and in that routine, it's easier to, practice, go out, play the games, that kind of stuff. Once you're out of school, a lot of routines just off the charts now. You're not really having a routine, and playing those state tournaments, 3 weeks, 2 weeks after the end of school has got to be difficult, which is why I feel like they kind of have to leave the baseball and the softball. They should be identical, not because the sports are necessarily the same, but because the seasons are at the same time.
Yep.
And that's going to
they're in a tough spot. You can't really move it up much because of the weather in the spring.
Yeah.
They have to be able to play so many games, so you can't start in February. And really, the weather right now is the time to play baseball and softball.
Yeah, that's right.
You just run into, it's like we talked about, graduations and things like that, and it's just it's. I always said coaching spring sports is difficult because of proms and graduations. There's just so many other factors that kind of interfere sometimes with what you're trying to do as a coach.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about that is, in Kentucky, you mentioned this is the right time to be playing those sports.
Yes, it is.
But they've moved the start of the seasons back to earlier in March. The weather's not necessarily conducive to playing your diamond sports at that time of year. And I know I've talked to a few coaches who don't really like where the season starts, but they don't, like you said, they don't have an easy answer for how to shorten the season.
There's not.
And still get everything that you want out of it.
There's not. And I think they've probably found the right mix. We both, I think, disagree on moving the postponement of the state tournament and girls to the extra week was seemed like it'd be a little bit over the top when they didn't really have to do that.
Yeah, because as they showed, they made the immediate decision on Saturday to go ahead and play the championship because it was originally scheduled to be on Sunday.
Yeah.
So they turned it around in 2 hours and went ahead and played the state title game.
Yes.
So, I mean, they proved that they could have, and as we talked about last week, I mean, they could have played on Monday or Tuesday because instead of just on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because a lot of people were out of school, and I imagine families or schools could have made that adjustment to some degree. So, yeah, it's kind of knee-jerk. Meanwhile, the College Baseball World Series got started Saturday.
Yes.
Louisville played Sunday against Vandy. Their high-powered offense didn't do so well.
Well, let me just correct you a little bit on that.
Okay.
I don't think they have a high-powered offense.
Well, they usually score quite a few runs.
Well, they did in the Super Regional. They got hot against East Carolina.
You're right, yeah.
But their strength is their pitching.
Yeah.
They've got great arms.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate part for Louisville is they drew, I think, the best team.
Right.
Vanderbilt is, I think, the consensus number one team up there.
Mm-hmm.
And Louisville let one batter kill them. Well, the leadoff hitter hit two home runs against them, and they got beat 3-1.
Yeah.
And that just puts them in a terrible hole in a double elimination tournament because now they'll have to rely on their pitching depth. They play tomorrow night, and they play against Auburn, who lost a horrible way against Mississippi State, where they were up in the last inning, and a pretty routine grounder to the third baseman. He just airmailed it into the stands, which allowed Mississippi State to come back and tie and then win it.
Yeah, my question is, I mean, he held for the runner to pass. Why didn't he just go
for
the tag?
Well, he should have. There's no question he should have. But even not doing that, you have to make that throw.
Yeah.
I mean, he just, he dropped his elbow and airmailed it,
Yeah.
and that's I hate it for him. I never like. I don't mind comeback wins for teams, but I hate it when it comes at an expense of an error that another person makes, whether
Yeah.
it's a basketball mistake or a baseball mistake that way. Louisville just got beat 3-1. They let one guy just beat them. But Auburn, that third baseman, that will be something. It'll be hard for him to. You live with that a long time.
My late mother-in-law was celebrating that, I'm sure, because I mean she was Mississippi State everything.
Yeah.
Her whole family is Mississippi State everything.
But again, you want to win.
Yeah.
Without the mistake is what I'm
I
trying
do
to say.
feel bad for that guy. I mean, I guess you could look at it if you're a Mississippi State fan, or if you're a fan and generally. I mean, they say put the ball in play and make the defense make the play.
Right, right. No.
And that was.
No, you take it as Mississippi State. No, I'm just being neutral, just saying I have empathy for the third baseman.
Oh, yeah, I hated it for him. I mean, I hated it for him because when I watched the play, I'm like, when I didn't see the play live, I saw the replay of the play, and I'm like, how did this happen? Because I mean, when I saw the runner coming, I'm like, he's going to tag him out.
Yep.
And so I couldn't quite understand. I was listening and heard the mistake, but I didn't understand what the mistake was until later. But it does set up. I mean, we have an interesting kind of situation because Texas Tech and Arkansas were playing at 1.
It's 3-3 in the 8th when I came over here.
Yeah, so that was going on. That's an elimination game, and as you mentioned, Louisville plays Auburn tomorrow in an elimination game. Vandy and Mississippi State, 2 SEC teams, play tomorrow at 6. Winner moves on. The loser will drop down and play the winner of Louisville-Auburn. And then Michigan, this dark horse team that was a 3 seed in their own regional, is in this again. They beat Texas Tech yesterday 5-3. Florida State beat Arkansas 1-0, and Michigan and Florida State play today at 6. So
they've had great weather so far.
Yeah.
That normally is not the case out there.
No, usually you're dodging hail and tornadoes.
That's correct, but they've had great weather. Great crowds, what I've seen on TV.
Yeah.
And I like Vanderbilt. That's a tough one for me. Obviously, I played baseball at Louisville, and I'm for Louisville, but I also like Vandy.
Yeah.
That's a tough loss. Louisville, that's their 5th trip. They need to win a couple games.
Yeah.
Because they've never gone real deep. I think
have they won a game?
Yeah, they've won a game twice.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, last time they were there, they won their first game.
That's right.
And then got beat back to back.
Yeah.
I just think they need to win a couple games just to kind of get that monkey off their back. They don't have to win the College World Series, but they need to win tomorrow. They need to beat Auburn.
Yeah, which Auburn is kind of a curious team because I was looking at their team batting average is like something like 297 or something like that. It's like atrocious for college baseball. But they generally play very good defense from what I saw, and they were also, I think, a 3 seed out of their bracket as well.
Any team out of the SEC, there's 4 out of the 8 for the SEC, so they can play.
Yeah, they didn't get there by accident, that's for certain. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, the Glasgow softball job is open. I looked it up. You can find it on the Glasgow School District website. You don't see it on the KHSA website. I don't know exactly when it was posted, but I actually saw Stephen Murphy today, and was talking to him about it, that he had gone ahead and turned in his resignation. He was telling me, Taylor, his oldest daughter, who was the pitcher, graduated. His youngest daughter doesn't play softball. She runs track and cross country, which his wife was a heck of a track athlete, I think, at Barron County back in the day. And also she plays basketball. And so he's an assistant principal at Highland now, and he's going to take that time, I guess, to go watch his daughter do some sports, which I understand.
He did they're not, I can just say this. They're not going to find a better person to take that job.
Yeah.
Stephen Murphy's a heck of a person, did a really, really good job.
Yeah.
You can't judge somebody based on the last year.
No.
Because in high school, players change. You go through good times and bad times, and he's a very good baseball coach, and he did a good job in softball. They struggled just with some numbers in the last year or two, but I really like Coach Murphy. I think he did a really, really good job. Sometimes you get unfairly blamed, I think, at times, and I'm not saying this is what happened, but sometimes I think you take some criticism that's not always fair. Their program will be fine, because I really think the new field will really help them.
I do too.
I don't think people realize how difficult it was to play where not in your home facility. And it's not like in the Glasgow baseball, which that's a beautiful facility. They've done a lot of work there, but the one that Glasgow girls been played at has not been the greatest facility in the world. No offense to the park system, but just not.
Yeah.
And this facility on their own school grounds will really be a boon for them.
Well, okay, that brings me to a point here, because Glasgow and Barron have always kind of been the other team in the 15th district.
Yeah,
Allen's always been number one. One of those two has kind of bumped around in second. For a lot of time, it's been more Glasgow than Barron through the years.
Barron's field has really helped us.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. That's a case in point. They were playing over at Red Cross Elementary. I think
Weldon Park 1 year.
Yeah, Weldon Park. They did not have a home field. They did not have home field advantage or any of that kind of stuff. Their program has taken off more so since they built the facility on campus.
It helped. There's been other factors, but
you can just walk down from the school, practice, do whatever. You don't have to drive somewhere. You don't have to figure out how to get young players somewhere.
Dress there.
Yeah, all that stuff. I mean, you can do all that stuff, and that will help Glasgow a lot.
Yes, it will.
Just the convenience of it.
Yes, it will.
But I think going back to maybe some criticism and that kind of stuff. What happens a lot of times when you're in a town and you got two school districts in it, when one does well, the people at the other one looks over and says, well, why aren't we doing that?
And people tend to have amnesia.
Yeah, they do indeed.
They don't realize that's what happens. It's, there's going to be years where Barron is going to be better in basketball than Glasgow, and other years Glasgow's going to be better. And you can name the sport. It's generally that way.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to see who it is that gets the job. Actually, Glasgow had a young team. I think they had 3 seniors. Now, Murphy was the pitcher. They'll miss Amanda Lee no matter what. She played catcher,
for
best
5
hitter
years.
on the team. Yeah, she was an outstanding softball player. She's the kind of player you just don't replace.
Be tough.
Yeah, and going back when we were talking about basketball, same thing in basketball.
Yes.
She was
kind of the glue.
Yeah, you can't replace players like that. It's not necessarily about the numbers all the time. It's about the attitude and whatnot they bring to the team.
I agree.
That's the theme of this show, John.
That's right. The attitude, the team.
The attitude you bring to a team, the calmness, the dedication, and the commitment, and all that stuff. But anyway, I think it'll be interesting. I don't think Glasgow is going to be in the doldrums forever. And truthfully, from what we saw at Allen County this year, there's a chance that if Glasgow gets, they find somebody who can be in the circle and be consistent, they find a catcher who can, at least manage the game from that position, and they just play probably just a little better error-free ball, which is kind of what ate them up this year. There's no reason they can't be the second or first team, I guess, in the 15th district, because Allen has definitely fallen back.
They have.
And the door is open, for Barron to have a good dominant run because they got a good young team. But the door is also open for Glasgow to be a regional contender.
I think Barron will be, for the next 5 years, will be a favorite in this district.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the second or third?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Right. Now, and I would say
for fourth.
Yeah. Now, I would say for the next 5 years, Barron will maybe be the second favorite in the region because, as you pointed out already, Warren East is
they're not going anywhere. No.
But anyway, it'll be the jobs are being filled. We had TJ Coffey on a couple of weeks ago talking about taking over at Metcalfe County Girls. I think most of the open jobs for basketball and whatnot have been filled, but we have some softball positions, others that may come
Warren
up
East
soon.
Girls basketball.
Warren East Girls basketballs. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week at 4.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
This is WCDS Glasgow, ESPN Radio 1230, your total sports leader.